please keep your microphone muted while Andreas present. And you can also use the chat function to write questions for Andreas. So with that, I think I stop share and you, Andreas, can share your presentation.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for this nice introduction and for giving a little bit an update about the GCUA. I myself have not known that there is a newsletter, so I have to subscribe then also later. Welcome everybody, and I saw that we have also colleagues from the United States. Good morning there. It's midday here in Austria, in Central Europe, and I work from at home also, as most people, I think here. We have a lockdown, and we are trying to communicate as much as possible, also to give the lectures online. So I will share you my presentation. Here is sharing the presentation. So I hope you can see something. And I go to the slideshow. And now you should have a slideshow. I think this is okay. Yeah, it's working. I see it from Elizabeth. Yes, great. The idea came because there was this award for the best thesis in sustainable development goals contribution, and in the communication with that, I also mentioned that my work and my habilitation, which was finished this year in June, is also about the SDGs. And my big question was, what can a scientist like me in his 15-20 years work at the university contribute to the SDGs? And I will give a little bit an overview about that. As normal, I have many slides, but don't worry. Most of them are pictures and photos, so there is not so much text. So I will. The subtitle was the transdisciplinary development of indicators to achieve a more sustainable management of socio-ecological systems. In particular, I will talk today mostly about aquatic systems and dynamics and processes. So this is the first part, will be this about this ecosystem management and the human impact. And then we'll have, like in a nutshell, a little bit about my work on the climate change impact and mitigation measures which are possible. And then finally on evidence-based multiple system synthesis and assessment, the third mission as we know it. And then I will shortly introduce with one slide the project in Austria, which is called Uninet. It's a cooperation of universities to work on an option paper for the Austrian government. And you know the SDGs. I will not talk too much in the SDGs itself and not go too much into detail. I will highlight some things. But again, as I said, what could be a scientist's contribution to these SDGs? And as normal, there are 17 SDGs and all these targets, and people see very different things, like this cartoon, this old known cartoon. It's from Michael Obersteiner. He's now a professor in Cambridge. He was at IASA, the International Institute for System Analysis. And finally, it's the SDGs. How do this fit together? The point is that the SDGs are very much interwoven and they are very much integrated. So this means if you touch one SDGs, if you do action in one of those SDGs, it has an effect on other and several other SDGs. And where are these effects, on which components we look at, or we at our university look at, is the social component, the social participation, the resource security, and about sustainable communities, cultural and political development is also very, very important. Then, of course, the environmental part with ecosystem services, you know it, and stressors and pressures on green technology. Bioeconomy is a big a big question also in our university. And then finally, also the economic part, which is known. And as we are the university, for me, it's very important to bring down the research results into the education, into the lectures. So this science-based education is something which is very important also in supervision and mentoring of students. And this is the structure of my habilitation thesis. It includes 16 publications, and it shows also the bridge of my development at the university. So when I started working at the university, or even earlier with my master thesis, it was about modeling and assessment, modeling of ecosystems, modeling of the ecological status of habitats, habitat loss, and ecosystem services. So this was the first part. And then in a second part later on, I was focusing also a little bit more on the climate change impacts and the mitigation. What can we see? What are the temperature effects on rivers, and how does this affect the fish communities, for example? And is it possible to mitigate using riparian vegetation? And I just wanted to highlight here that food and food consumption is a very, very important question, and there is a lot of activities done, and reports are done how to achieve a better. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, because I couldn't see the participants. Now I can see them again. Okay, food security, malnutrition, and this is a really important issue. And I just want to jump now a little bit quicker. So resilient food supply chains are needed. It is said here, and we also need healthy diets. We also need resilient farming, a strong local and regional food production, which goes also in the idea of the bioeconomy. But also we need, in addition, conservation. We need to save our ecosystems, and we have to save our environment. And this is where I want to come in. Here's an example of 3 publications, and these publications are from Burkina Faso. We'll give some of these examples from Burkina Faso. Ecosystem management is an analogy between diagnostic tools for assessing human and river health. So you can see if we have a working river, an intact river, then we also have an intact catchment and a working environment. And here is some figures from Burkina Faso. We have to deal with overpopulation and increase from the 1970s by 5 million up to 20 million nowadays. And this is really a lot. How the people reacted to that. And they built about 1,600 reservoirs in the last 30 years in this country. These reservoirs are used for human consumption, but also for the cattle, and also for irrigation, for gardening and agriculture. And here you see a classical picture. Here you see a picture of a reservoir. You see the downstream and the upstream situation, and along the river sides, along the river banks, you see the gardening where people are doing their farms and running their farms. And there are also a lot of human impacts, and on these rivers, we have to deal with water abstraction, with the scarcity of water. Irrigation is a big deal. Here we have a sugarcane field, which is not the best solution, which goes into the direction of industrial agriculture. But also fishing and overfishing is a big issue, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa countries. And you see here a picture of the bad water quality in Burkina Faso. The cattle is drinking the bad water, and you can assume if the pollution through the meat is transferred to human diet, that this is really a problem. So therefore is also this need for healthy diet. But there is a lot of uncertainty also given nowadays due to climate change. We have to deal with droughts, we have to deal with floods, erosion, as a result of deforestation and the floods, and in addition, the loss of habitat there. And why is fish so important? Fish is an important source of protein. They use the dried fish in the dry season in addition to rice and into their diets. And this is about the project Susfish in Burkina Faso, sustainable management. It has also these two components, the society baseline and the ecosystem baseline, which is meant to have an outcome on food and health security, but also in capacity building for universities in education and research. There are several partners in the Northern Hemisphere, and there are also some partners in Africa, universities, and also NGOs like the IUCN. Yeah, and these are some of the research questions, as I mentioned before, to ensure sustainable food production, to adapt to climate change, to improve the ecological awareness, to implement resilient fisheries management, to protect the waters, and finally, to invest into higher education. How was this done? With quantitative and qualitative data. On the one hand, on fish sampling, when we were looking at the biodiversity for assessment and for assessing the habitats, but also in interviews with stakeholders, fishermen, and scientific persons. And this is one of the results of these interviews. And we asked the people, what do you think has a strong impact on fish, in your fish resources? And nowadays, they're really aware about climate change, that climate change has an impact. But also on the third point is overfishing highlighted, because they have no regulations on fishing in these countries, which leads to a completely decline of the fish species and the fish biomass. You see here a graph where you can see the decrease of fish from with the number of the impacts. You see here how the more impacts you have, the less fish species you have in the different environments. And this helped also to transfer and to inform the politics and the government. And we had a success on a Lake Palm restoration measure started, and the president himself came to see what's going on there and what can be improved and what is be done in this restoration and regeneration of this lake. Climate change. Back to Austria a little bit, we see clearly an increase of the water temperature of Austrian rivers since the 1970s. This is really a dramatic increase what we realize here. And we compared in a project, is it two rivers, an impacted rivers and a more nature-like river, and to understand the effects of vegetation for mitigation. And what we see here is just the line of our samples, of our temperature samples. And this yellow zone is when the temperature for grayling for a cold water fish species is too high. So this is a typical fish species there. And you see how many days, especially in summer, are exceeding this optimum temperature. So you can see no habitat anymore available due to the water temperature in this area. Yeah, here is some other graphs. What we have seen in these rivers is that the less impacted, the nature-like river on the left side, has a balanced species composition between cold and warm water species, and then the other one, which is highly impacted, especially through agriculture and no vegetation along the riverside, we have an increase of this warm water species. And even you could see the daily temperature difference between riversides with vegetation and out vegetation. It says there is a difference between 6 degrees. So it means that the vegetation can mitigate 6 degrees Celsius during a day. Yeah, this is some of the conclusions. As I said before, that the warm water species are increasing here and the cold water species decrease. And now a little bit about these multiple lines of evidence, where we combine in a classical way the literature review, but we do a little bit more. We do an extraction of these literature reviews. We combine this with the interviews. We test this with the interviews on the one hand to get this driver pressure status impact reactions, and we develop as as a reflection future pathways in the area. And this is done here in a social simulation game where we invited stakeholders, but also students to explain on a map where are the problems in a catchment. And this is then later on discussed. And then integrated into a conceptual model. The time is a little bit short, so I cannot explain in detail, but we see here where we have low impacts and where we have high impacts, and what is the effect on food security, what is the effect on the income of the people in this area. Yeah, same here for this project. I just wanted to highlight that this is facing the SDGs very much. Several SDGs are interacted here. And this is then finally a policy recommendation for the implementation for, say, healthy rivers and healthy food in terms of fish and fisheries, to improve agriculture in this area, but also to highlight the scientific cooperation which is needed. And here is something about this UNINETS project. The UNINETS project is an Austrian project, as I said in the beginning, where we want to support the Austrian government, with options to implement and to run the SDGs in Austria. And again, here, this is an example of meat consumption. You see that there is a lot of interaction when we look at SDG, starting at SDG 2, and the meat consumption has effect on nearly all other SDGs. And the same was done for my habilitation thesis. As I mentioned before, there have been 16 publications. In total, I used all my publications, which have been more than 60 or 70. And I looked to which of the SDGs I have a relation and to which of them they are strongly related. And they are related very much to SDG number 1, SDG number 2 with zero food, but also to education, sanitation of water, renewable energy, climate change effects, and then of course, life on land, SDG number 15. Yeah, and I want, as a take-home message, I would give you some ideas about what is needed in the future, which transformations should happen. And here are 6 transformations explained by my colleagues at the IIASA, the International Institute for Applied System Analysis, in a project which is called The World in 2050. And they say, attaining the SDGs in a resilient and lasting way requires action now. So this is really important, that we have to start now. It is not so much the case in Austria. I have sometimes the feeling, and it is also said, it is not enough to look only until 2030. We have to look beyond this. And we need for this grand transformation integrated, holistic approach. Third, we should not forget that we will have winners and losers here. So there's always a little bit, how I say, a strange reaction when we discuss the SDGs. There's some people, now do we need this, and so on and so on. You know this, but we also have to bring these people on board. It's very important to say here. And we need experiencing signs of this, let's say, counter transformation. And finally, all this research and our behavior should be included into the governance. This should reach the governance, and we as scientists have to stand up and to give political advice. This is maybe not so easy to publish in scientific papers, but it's very important if we want to have a better life for all. And finally, an old saying, think globally, act locally. This is what I also wanted to highlight in this short presentation here, from a global perspective down to local management, when we think on this Lake Balm with the restoration measures which have been done there. Yes, Yes, some literature. You find this on ResearchGate.net from the SUSFISH. We also have a book published this year. So it's on 150 pages, a summary of everything which is important for sustainable and modern, like the Africans like to say, in a modern way of water and ecosystem management. And my habilitation is also available on ResearchGate. So thank you for your attention. I was speaking very fast now, but I'm sorry that I lost the connection, but now we have time for questions, I guess.
Thank you very much, Andreas. I think this was really interesting. I think there might be a lot of questions. Just one from me, because I was thinking these results you published are so linked to writing policy briefs and trying to communicate with with people outside academia. And then you showed us the slide that this is what you're targeting, but have you been able to, I mean, it's just a few years now, but in Austria, have you been able to communicate your science, and have you reached policymakers, etc.? What's your experience?
Yeah, I think I have a good experience in doing so. I think from the beginning in my work, before I was at the Institute of Hydrobiology and Water Management, we always try to work together with the ministries, but also with the stakeholders, with the hydropower companies and with others. And this is a success story. This is something which is really important to mention. And don't be shy, and because some people or some scientists think, okay, this is not my job, this others should do this. No, I think they are very happy in the ministries when they get results and when they get advice from the science. And sometimes you have to be proactive and to push politicians to to uh, to go into discussions. So we also invite them to be partners in projects. This is one of a very important step, that they are informed from the beginning what we are doing, and that they can see our work, how we think, how things are developing. I think we have nothing to hide as scientists, so they can and they should be partners. Even in Africa, it's very important. It's very important to have them from the beginning as a partner. We had the Ministry of Fisheries, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Science not only invited to the symposia or conferences, but also into the workshops.
Thank you, Andreas. Questions, comments from all of you? You can just unmute your microphones and put your videos on, I think, if you have any questions. I just had another question about the social simulation. How is that? Is it like a theory of change that you follow a stepwise approach, or
Now, the social simulation needs a lot of preparation in the beginning. So we, as I said, it's a stepwise procedure going into the literature. In Africa, it's sometimes not so much available about catchments or environment. And then also to make with interviews a picture, a conceptual model of cause effects. What is causing, what are the drivers, and what are the effects? So we have a theoretical conceptual modeling based on multiple lines of evidence, also based on data, and this is integrated and prepared for the stakeholder workshop. So this lasts 1 day or even 2 days. So the stakeholders are invited, they sit around or they walk around the table in different groups, they get exercises, what they have to look at, and then the discussion starts in small groups. So it's better than a round table. You know, in a round table, not everyone has the opportunity to speak up. But when you go around and discuss with people in little groups, and then you put your cards on the impacts or what has to be improved in a catchment or in an environment, and this is much easier to handle. So there's this stepwise procedure. First is, what do you think? The first question is, what do they think? What the participant think is the the most important impact. So as you have different stakeholders, the fishermen would say, okay, there's a problem with fisheries. The community, the municipality will say, now there's a problem with the water quality. Others will say there's a problem with erosion. So this is brought on the table. And then you have, and then in the next round, you look at this, to discuss this situation, and then you discuss in a final round what should be changed, what do you think can be changed, and what is possible to change, and also what are the priorities to be done in such a system. Yeah, but this needs a clear preparation. This needs also a moderation, then a kind of moderation. There was this
stakeholder analysis to find all the right stakeholders you need to bring into the room.
Yeah, the stakeholders. There was this funny story with the king. You know, there's this picture with the king. Here's also the last picture was also with the king. So when the king appeared in the morning, nobody wanted to speak up because everyone was waiting for the king. You know, we say, nah, this local chief, this traditional chief, he is the boss, and I have to wait. And then we ask him to sit down a little bit and to discuss in smaller groups. And then after 1 hour, the whole discussion started. So this is also something which is very important.
It's a bit like Zoom meetings sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions to Andreas?
I have one, I think. Hi, Andy. It's been a while. This is Richard Johnson. It's been a while
hi,
since
Richard.
we met.
See you.
I really enjoyed your interaction. I know of your work in Africa, but this when you meet with stakeholders and ask them about their perceptions, what we found in Sweden when we do that is people have very poor perceptions of the past. I mean, like one generation, that's their reference point in time. Have you found that in your work too?
Yeah, this is absolutely true. This is absolutely true. And there's also a lack of information in terms of scientific information. This is what we also have seen. The people know that the fish migrate. They know that the fish are migrating in a river, but they couldn't see them. They cannot see the fish, and they say it's a miracle. So they come with a flood like in the Bible, or they fall from heaven and something, all these stories. But they are not aware that fish do not only a downstream migration, but they also do a migration upstream. So they were completely sad when they realized that the fish go down, maybe to another village, and say, now we lose all our fish. And they had no explanation why the fish are coming back in the next year. So this really needs this kind of updating and explanations in a easy way.
Yeah. I liked your figures with water temperature and your work on fish, but and I have no doubts that climate is having a strong impact on these regions, but a lot of those temperatures must be due to water abstraction. There's less water in those systems, so it's going to be much higher temperatures. Have you tried to disentangle the two?
Yeah, of course. The combination. This is still you know it from some European Union project. This is still this unsolved question about what are the effects of multiple pressures, and what are the effects of these multiple pressures? Will it be additive, or will it be then exponential change? And in most cases, it is the sum of the effects. I think one reason, if we did also some modeling about impacts with decision trees, and you know this, and we saw, okay, if you have agricultural land, you have automatically a bad situation, and you have bad sites. But it's not only the agriculture. It's the temperature increase in combination with agriculture, with pesticides, but also then in combination with channelization, with loss of habitat and others. We can see this also in Africa, in Ethiopian rivers. So you have a looking nature-like river, but you have so much erosion and loss of habitat due to this erosion there, that the rivers are completely impacted then. So this is not so easy to filter and to figure out what are the real reasons. And therefore we try to do this conceptual model and to explain it in a sensitive way.
Yeah, because one of my colleagues, Kevin Bishop, he works in Ethiopia and has several PhD students and he's a hydrologist, geochemist, and works with forests. And one of the problems they have is when they replant forests, the forests suck up more water.
Yeah.
And then it gets into the atmosphere, and then it's being exported to other regions, other countries. So yeah, so there aren't any. I mean, it's difficult working with environmental issues. So
yeah, especially in Ethiopia, there's a lot of problems with this reforestation with bamboo, which is not local there, and also with the what's the name of I forgot, I had it before, of this Australian plant, the eucalyptus. Yeah. The eucalyptus there, which are sucking a lot of water. Yeah, and this is the need for these local adaptations. What we really try to get.
Any other questions to Andreas? I think perhaps we can. Is it okay if we send your presentation as a PDF, Andreas?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, it is.
Thank you.
And you can download this book for free. There's also a lot of nice information of what can be done in African environments, the global south. So the idea is to bring in the lessons learned here on European scale into this African scale, and I really want to highlight here also that partnership is one of the most important triggers for better understanding in the future. And I'm happy that also more and more scientists in the northern hemisphere realize that we have to go out of the comfort zone and also to work together with African scientists, not to go there to teach them and to explain what has been done. We have so many alumni, you and SLU, you have so many alumni too, I guess, from Africa, and we have so many alumni, and we should use the capacity they have, and we should integrate and work with them together on how to say smart solutions and smart projects.
Thank you very much.
That was a good summary.
Sorry, Richard.
No, I'm just saying that was a very good summary that he just gave.
Exactly. So I don't want to say anymore now. That was so weird. So the clock is actually 1, and we will share the presentation, Andreas, and thank you again very, very much.
Yeah, sorry that they lost the connection here, but
we managed. I called you, and I think it was Bernard who actually said perhaps Andreas isn't aware of that. So that was really good. And Franz is giving applause to you here. Thank you very much, Andreas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all my colleagues and friends and interested people. Take care. Hope to see you soon.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.